All right, this week I am joined by John Laliberte. John is a soccer guy that a lot of people listening probably know. He was a professional hockey player in Europe for, I think, 12 years. We talk a little bit about that. And he came back here, started a professional career working for Tom Watson, who some of you may recognize. And now he's the CEO of Reveler Development, who has their hand in a few projects in Biddeford, and they're doing a lot of good stuff to shape the local community that I live in. So it was a great conversation with him. We discussed how he got into his role, some of the things he's learned, some of the things that they're working on and have coming up. It was an awesome conversation. Really happy for his success. Awesome guy. And I appreciate him taking the time to come on the podcast today. So this is the Randy Forcier podcast. As always, do me a favor. If you're listening to this on YouTube, if you could like the video, if you could subscribe, that'd be great. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, also follow the podcast so you can see when every episode comes out on Monday morning. So thank you for listening. Here's John. All right, I'm here with John Laliberte. John, thank you for taking the time to come on the podcast today, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Randy. Thanks for having me. I'm glad we could get together here. It's a pleasure.
It's been a few years, man, since we last met up for coffee. Probably did the occasional LinkedIn message or text or whatever, but there was a time we were meeting for coffee. You were just wrapping up your hockey career, trying to figure out what your next step in your main life would be, your professional career. You were considering options. You ended up going to Port Properties, and now you're the CEO of Reveler, which is amazing. So lots happened.
Yeah, no, it's been a quick 5 years, man. So that was 5 years ago, or 5 seasons since I've been out.
That's how you count things in seasons.
yeah. Well, that's the easiest way to keep track. Yeah. So, I mean, once you get over like the age of 30, you stop keeping track of your age. So you got to keep track of hockey seasons. So
seasons.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that time when we met up, it was probably 6 years ago now, that I met you. And at that time I was kind of making the rounds with all the kind of real estate professionals I could here in, Saco Biddeford area, Greater Portland. You were easy to reach out to because we had played softball together down at Rotary Park back in the day.
Which was fun, man, which is forever ago at this point. But yeah, definitely.
Sometimes I wonder what happened to that team, man. I wish we could still have that going.
It was a solid team. I'm surprised we didn't do better, but that was fun, man. All of us young guys back in our 20s. I miss some of those days.
Before the kids started coming.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it really was an exercise of getting in front of as many people as I could back then. I'd come home in the off season. At that point, I was on my 12th year pro, 10, 11, 12. I'd come home in the summer I was playing in Ingolstadt, Germany, outside of Munich. Yeah. And I'd come home in the summer, and we had our house in Scarborough, and I'd just start trying to get in front of people and have these informational interviews and kind of, expand that real estate network here. It comes a point in every guy's career, I think, where you start thinking about what's the next step, what's the next chapter. And I was 32, 33. I still had runway on my contract. Actually, when I retired, I still had another year on my contract. But I started really getting interested in real estate investing. Is what sparked my interest. I was reading the books and listening to the podcasts and doing all that stuff. Yeah,
I remember chatting about that. So when we were meeting up and you were kind of plotting your next steps, was that between seasons or was that after your career was done? I actually forget. Did you go back to Germany to play?
Yeah, it was probably, I assume it was one of those summers. There was like 2 to 3 summers where I'd come home and just start meeting people and calling guys. And I assume you were probably in that mix at that point. Yeah.
So that's smart of you to do it while you were still pro. I mean, really planning ahead, not just like retiring and being like, now what, and scrambling. Like, give yourself some time to make those connections and have those conversations.
Right. I mean, you'd be surprised how many guys just play until they can't get a contract, right? And I saw it a lot throughout my career where guys, they're banking on that next contract. Every summer comes around, they're looking to sign their next 1-year deal, and eventually the 1-year deal doesn't come, and it's a scramble for them. And so unfortunately, like, that does happen a lot, especially in minor league hockey. I mean, I played 12 years of minor league hockey. And, at that level, you're making good enough money to have a good life. You get the house and you can take care of the family and stuff. But there needs to be a next chapter after
it's
a
not
minor
enough
league
money
career
to just retire at that point.
Correct.
And, and work minimally. You have to have some type of next step. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when did you retire then? Were you 33, 34?
I was 30. Was at 34. Yeah, I was 34. It was 2018.
So
Yeah.
somewhere along those last few years that you were playing, or maybe when you got back, you got connected with Tom Watson from Port Properties.
Yeah, it was interesting. I met Tom. He was one of the guys I met one of those summers. It was a couple years before I retired, and I hounded him more than anybody because it was interesting. I could tell he was at this point in his career. Tom Watson, he came to Portland 30 years ago, started buying apartment buildings, and when I met him, he had about 1,300 apartment buildings in Greater Portland, or apartments in Greater Portland.
1,300 units or
1,300 units. Yeah, sorry, not buildings.
Still, that's an amazing number.
Yeah, no, and he had done. I mean, it's the similar, program that everybody kind of tries to do now, where you buy a beat up apartment building, you fix it up, and get the good tenant in. As he was doing that, he was also building his property management company, Port Property. But at that time I met him, this was probably 2017. He was trying to kind of get away from the operational and management part of his business and do the fun stuff, do deals.
Yeah.
He had kind of dabbled in a little bit of development, I think. And, he came up, moved his office away from the management company so he could kind of focus on building out, this acquisitions and development group. And so the timing was really good for me to kind of like meet him and get in front of him. And, most developers you get in front of, they're kind of like, nice to meet you. Don't call me. I'll call you. Because these guys they're busy guys. They're entrepreneurial and doing their thing.
I mean, he's one of the most successful guys in Greater Portland, I would think, when it comes to owning properties and property management company.
Yeah, I think he's. I mean, the management company. I think it's the biggest residential management company in Maine. I think he has the biggest residential portfolio in Maine for sure.
Yeah, makes sense. So I think it just speaks that it's not easy to get in front of those guys and get their attention. And
right.
So.
Yeah. No. So it was really, it was a timing thing where the opportunity was there, and I was just kind of hounding him. Eventually, I came back in the summer of 2018, and just kind of followed up with him and stay in touch. Said, hey, get some coffee or something. And at that point, he said, there's a position for you here if you want to start. And I was kind of like, oh well, I have another year on my contract. And I say position, it was kind of like, he just was like, I need somebody to hang out with. He hadn't hired anybody yet. He's like, this young kid, he's kind of, seems like he's hungry. He could do some grind work for me. And so, he gave the opportunity. I had no intention of starting to work that year, but a week later, I kind of made the decision, called our team in Germany.
So that was the catalyst to you retiring.
Yeah.
Was this an opportunity?
Yeah. No, it was just a great opportunity, and it really was what I wanted to get into and do. That was what I was interested in, what I've been studying, and it was exactly what I wanted. And so it's kind of like you can't really pass something like that up, even though you had the opportunity to go back and play another year. In all likelihood, it would have been my last year. So
either way,
timing was right.
It sounds like a risk. I mean, Tom's obviously an established guy, and there wasn't a carved out position, and you guys are kind of feeling it out. But it sounds like there was a little bit of risk, so you had to take a leap of faith to some degree.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
I think so. Well, it's kind of like hockey put me in this position again. Like I had enough money where it wasn't like, he started me at $30,000, and he brags to everybody. He's like, yeah, that kid worked for me for 30 grand, So, and it really was like, all right, just come in, you can learn, you can sit around, learn from him and the group and his network. And that's one thing that was like, 30 grand wasn't even like, it wasn't a thought in my mind. It was more just like, I'm coming in, I get to be around Tom, and all the partners that he has in his network, and sit in the office with him, and just kind of like, at that point, I did a lot of listening and very little talking. It was just learning, learning the business. And but it was scary because, you go from earning a good salary and supporting your family to saying, okay, well, this may or may not work, but it was kind of just head down grind, like try to bring as much value in any possible way as you could at that point. Try to stick around.
I remember when we were talking those years back, I feel like you told me about Tom Watson and Port Properties, and I had no awareness of him. I mean, I'm a Biddeford Saco guy, just don't really operate in those circles that he is in the greater Portland area. So I had never heard of him, but I feel like I remember you saying that you may have had this opportunity, and I thought you actually went to work for him for free or something like that, or maybe you would have done that at the time.
Yeah, it was pretty much free. I probably would have,
yeah. But 30 grand is honestly not enough of a salary to support a family. So
no, not at all.
You're in a unique position to be able to do that. Not everyone can leave their other jobs to go, work for him for 30 grand a year.
Yeah,
see where
that's kind of what I tell people about hockey. It provided me the opportunity first, like, to figure out what exactly I was interested in life. Like, if I had to go to college, like many other guys and kids going to school, coming out of school, you don't know what you want to do with your life.
yeah.
It's a guess at that point. So that's kind of what hockey provided, was this delay for me to figure out what I'm interested in, what I think I can be passionate about.
Mhm.
And then ultimately it allowed me that opportunity to kind of like take my time and ease into it, because I had this life kind of set up with a little bit of reserves, and I was positioned to take a little bit of a risk and start for Tom.
So what were those first couple of years with Tom like?
It was learning, man. It was just it was a lot of learning.
You did put some deals together, though. I
Oh,
feel
yeah.
like you guys acquired that property on Main Street in Biddeford. Were you the Biddeford Saco guy, or did things transition to that at some point? I felt like you were in this
Yeah,
market more once you started working with Tom.
that's good memory. I mean, so at that time, it was 2018. Portland had just put their first referendum through for rent control,
Yeah.
and part of Tom hiring me was my familiarity with Biddeford Saco, because he was kind of looking to get out of the Portland market and start, expanding his portfolio outside of Portland, seeing the writing on the wall of all kind of the policy that was coming down the pipe here.
Mhm.
So that really was a focus, at that time too in Portland. I mean, it's prices back then seemed high at the time. They weren't compared to now, obviously, but the pricing on these, kind of older beat up apartment buildings was, the value just wasn't there to do that kind of typical program of going in, cleaning up an old building and getting the new rents. But in Biddeford, there's still some meat on the bone, some value there. So yeah, part of my learning experience was Tom was kind of just like, I say I was learning from him. I was kind of learning through like osmosis. It wasn't like he was like there was no like writing on the whiteboard and teaching me.
Yeah.
It was kind of just like I was sitting there like, through his activities and his discussions, learning the business. And part of that was he kind of just threw me into stuff. Like he said, go buy a building, so
Mhm.
that's what I did. I went, put the 145 Main Street under contract
Yeah.
in
Which is
Biddeford.
what, the 18 units above a commercial space? Maybe
That's
it's
right.
even, yeah.
Yeah. And actually before that, even I had this portfolio of really beat up properties in Biddeford. It was like 60 units or something, like 7 buildings. I had that under contract for a bit. And I was going through the process and due diligence, and I'm so glad we didn't close on that, because that would have been like the next 3 years of my life trying to clean
Yeah.
that place up. But anyways, then we moved on to like, 145 Main Street and nice brick building,
Yeah.
18
Beautiful.
apartments. I screwed up the whole, like every step of the way. I screwed everything up throughout the process. And I was sitting there, I was like, Tom won't let me fail doing this, will he? And looking back, like he totally would have let me fail. Like I was like, oh, he's got my back. He'll step in if I really screw up. But no, he wouldn't have stepped in. I don't think he would have just let me kind of flounder and learn from it, really.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I did. I mean, we ended up getting to the finish line. We closed it, but there was a bunch of code issues. Like I kind of managed the whole process of, getting the sprinkler in there, getting, all the renovations, and there was a lot of hurdles on that one. But it was an unbelievable learning experience. And
It's the only way you can learn, man. It's the only way you can learn is by doing stuff. You can read books. You could honestly listen to Tom. You could have conversations about all those things, but like you don't really retain it until you actually go through it. So that's cool that you grinded through it.
Yep, absolutely.
And you guys still have that property in the portfolio?
Still do. Yeah. That was, that was a no-brainer looking back on it. Like, unbelievable opportunity and deal. Yeah.
You know what? I looked at that property before you guys bought it.
Did you?
A couple
Too expensive
partners.
for you, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was. I mean, I feel like it was. I don't know, $600,000 or $800,000 at the time, and the rents didn't necessarily support it, and we didn't know what the hell we were doing either. So we probably weren't in as good a position as you guys were to add it to the portfolio. But like we looked at it, and in hindsight, I mean, it's in a great location, and there's some improvement that needs to happen in the area, but it's in that center area of what the next part of Main Street that needs to improve will be.
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of people thinking back on that deal, there was a lot of people, because that thing traded like maybe 4 times in 6 years or something, and the price went from like 300,000, 500,000, 700,000, and we bought it for like almost $1 million. I think it was like 950. And
so when I looked at it, I think someone did buy it, and then I think you guys bought it from that person. So it did change hands a few times. So
I think that's what scared a lot of people away. They're like, how could somebody buy this 2 years ago for 300 and now it's selling for 750? It's like people are just like, no way, can't. No, I'm not spending that money. But
so you guys still have that one. That's been a few years. You guys have was it the Loft project down by the river? What's the other big project that you guys had in Biddeford before you get to the Levee, which we'll get to in a sec?
Yeah, the River Dam project is down at the end of Pearl Street there. So after doing 145 Main Street, that kind of, the confidence builds, right? Every deal you do, and confidence built, and we went to River Dam, and that thing was a beast. I mean, it was literally falling into the river over the river wall. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot going into that deal. It was a historic tax credit project. We had multiple tax credit syndicators in the project. I was working with the city on the deal with them.
So you're managing all of that stuff.
Yeah, like the development process.
Saying all these things, I have no idea I mean, I can understand roughly what they mean, but like just how to manage all of those things and move a project forward to completion and renovation seems like a lot of things to manage. So to learn that stuff through the project. I mean, went from a typical program at 145 Main Street of adding value to an apartment building to a real, I mean, that was a development project, historic development project. And the thing that Port Property had was, that was a huge value there, was we had our own construction team to execute the renovations, right? A lot of these mill projects are really tough to hire a GC to come in there and do them. Most of the time when you see these mill projects, it's kind of like an in-house construction team. The reason being is that GCs look at these old mills and they're like, I don't know, like they got to throw contingencies at everything, right? Because they, once they start tearing the thing apart, you don't know what you're going to find, like environmental and structural, all that stuff. So it's really tough to get like an actual good price from a GC to go in and do those mill projects. So that's what we had at Port Property. We had this great construction team that we've continued to build out since River Dam. They did a phenomenal job at River Dam. Those apartments are unbelievable. And then I know some people that live there. They really enjoy it. It's a great area, man. It's, again, another part of town that's really blowing up, and you guys kind of got in there at the ground level, kind of created the ground level to some degree down there.
It was a different world back then, man. It wasn't that long ago. I mean, that was really 2019, 2020, and looks a lot different now. I think they're going to be complete the actual Pearl Street improvements there down to the river the end of the summer, I guess.
Like the infrastructure stuff.
Yeah, and
because I know the sidewalk stuff looks like it's wrapping up, and it looks like they're working on something. They're just not working on the building actual buildings and structures. But maybe they're just doing the groundwork,
road and infrastructure. Yeah, that's right. So then after River Dam, continue to build out a construction team. We had the confidence to go do the Levee project, the old Saco Lowell mill there, which just leased up this past spring.
Which is just a great project, like a great feather in your cap for what you guys are now. That building is something we've probably both driven by our whole entire lives, and we just didn't know what the hell was going on in there.
Yeah.
And to see what it is now, you guys have done a fantastic job. So why did you move forward with that building and not something else?
Well, I think it was just, it was a confidence thing where we had the team in place, right? We had the team in place. We had partnered with the city. We knew what to expect from them. We had the partners with it on the historic tax credit syndications. We just felt comfortable it was going to be a really similar project to River Dam. And we were just positioned well to do it. Mm-hmm. And I never really thought about going into that deal. Now that it's done, there's kind of a lot of pride in that deal specifically. I mean, that was one that, to your point, for years and years, I mean, nobody ever thought that building would ever be anything than a rundown old mill.
I thought that building would be demolished before something like what happened to it was done. Yeah. Like I figured someone would maybe acquire it, flatten it out, and do something there, but I never thought someone would be able to transform it the way you guys have into, $2,500 a month rents with a gym and storage and all this. I mean, you could talk more about all the amenities that it has, but it really is an amazing job that you guys did with it.
Yeah, no, it's a special project for, you go all the way back. I mean, my Pepe worked in that mill, it's crazy when you think about it. I think we're putting a plaque on there to commemorate the workers of, Saco Lowell mill way back.
That's awesome.
So it's one of those deals that I'll be proud of forever. But the product itself, to your point, like it's amazing apartments. Really unique apartments too. Giant windows. Those walls are just, you walk in and it's just a big wall of window. So
it's amazing. And there's a meeting space. And is there a roof deck on there?
There's all the kind of like what we've been trying to do as a company, as Reveler Development, is kind of bring a lot of the amenities that you see in these core markets in Boston and DC and New York, and stuff that is familiar in those core markets in terms of multifamily product. Trying to bring all those amenities to Portland or Greater Portland, because in reality, I think the renter demographic around here is demanding those things. We see it in our projects. So
it obviously is. I mean, you didn't have an issue renting that place out, right? There was wait lists and
there's wait lists. Yeah. No, we had. Yeah, I mean, we have the the nice gym, the co-working space, really nice co-working lounge, different areas throughout the building where you can like pull your laptop out and get a coffee and hang out. And we have the roof deck, indoor outdoor lounge, fireplace, all that, all the really nice space that kind of adds to the value of your apartment. It's not just an apartment that you're renting
all that other stuff too,
this entire facility. Yeah.
And I know some people, you might hear some of the chatter on social media and stuff, people complaining about rents in general in Biddeford Saco, and it's like, man, can you believe the Levee, the rent is $2,500, and there might be some more or less than that. That's the number I have in my head, but like the truth is there are people that want that sort of living, and this isn't for the family that has 3 kids and all that stuff, but there is a certain amount of people that can afford this, want those type of things in their life, and why not have that sort of thing in town if people want it.
And it's a growing demographic in this area of the country. I mean, there's young professionals moving to this area that want this product in particular, and it's not like a small contingent of the market. There's a lot of them. I mean, we see it throughout our portfolio. I mean, we have 2,000 apartments now in Greater Portland, and
so you were saying 1,300 before.
You're right, and we've grown it.
Grown it since then too.
Yeah, and now the renter demographic, since even from when I started to today, I mean, coming through COVID, a lot of things changed. Demographics, people moving here, income levels and jobs, and so we wouldn't be building the product if it wasn't in demand, right? So
things have changed so much since COVID. It's incredible, But I did not realize that you were actually CEO of Reveler until I saw that you were at the groundbreaking at the Levee. The photos that you did was kind of the ceremonial opening of the building, and I saw, wow, John's CEO now. So how did it go from working alongside Tom, because it wasn't Reveler at the time, and to actually establishing Reveler and being the CEO of that part of the company? Yeah.
So, man, it's been a lot has happened here in the last 5-6 years. But like I said, I was Tom's first hire here, and back then it was, like I said, he was trying to get away from the day-to-day operations of Port Property Management, the management company. And so what he did was, he started this acquisition development entity called Tom Watson and Company. And that's kind of like, that's the entity where we, submit our applications to the city, and all our contracts are in that name, or were in that name. And then also we had our sponsorship group, our investment platform is Bush Watson. So that was a different entity where all the partners, every deal we do is a separate syndication. So we go up to the partners as Bush Watson, we raise money and have limited partners in every deal. So there was kind of like 3 entities that we've been working with, and it was kind of like an organic growth. The next step was kind of like to combine or solidify all these entities, right? So now we form Reveler Development, which is, it's our sponsorship and investment platform. It's our development entity and Port Property Management. So a lot of work and effort's kind of gone into like structuring this thing. And I think it just, we've added a lot of really key players and along the way, key employees. We got our strategy officer, an investment officer, our operational and financial officers. So, and we get all these divisions where, we get the leaders in place, and it's been rapid growth to kind of keep up with the growth of our portfolio. I mean, adding 700 units in the last few years, and then there's another 700 in the next 3 years in the pipeline, right? So,
well, you have additional stuff in Biddeford going, right? There's an addition onto the Levee property, right? Some townhouses.
Yep.
Is this the only project that you guys have in Biddeford?
No, actually, we just broke ground.
You guys bought the Mulligans building too, didn't you?
Or
did I hear that correctly? We're under contract.
We're working on the contract at Mulligans. We just broke ground on a 250 unit apartment building out on Barrow Road near the hospital.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I had heard about that. I did not realize it was you guys, and I did not realize that ground was broken. So that's exciting. It's great.
Yeah. No, that was the latest one. That was last month. We closed on that, and it's the clearing trees, going to start blasting rock. A lot of ledge out there. So that'll be delivered in about 2 years' time.
Yeah.
18 months to 2 years. So
Great.
that's a big one. And then yes, the second phase of the Levee project, actually it's 31 condos, including
Yep.
townhomes and flats, which we're looking to close on in the next 2 weeks. Actually, 2 weeks from now, we're going to close that. We actually started some demolition of the existing buildings there on Upper Falls Road, formerly Gooch Street. But then, as also part of phase 2 is where there's a historic brick building all the way down at the end of the street that it's about 20,000 square feet right on the river.
You can't really see that from the road, though. I don't even think I realized that existed.
It's an interesting area of town. It's like what we're doing. I mean, we envision kind of this pocket neighborhood down there where we're trying to build this complete mixed use type of area where obviously it's right downtown, walkable to all the amenities of Main Street and the Mill District, but it's an area that has been forgotten forever. Nobody ever drives down that street at this point, right? There's no reason to.
I don't even think of it as a street.
That's right.
I don't even think that's a street that goes anywhere. I just thought it was like the entrance to what is now the Levee, and then just nothing besides that.
No, it's right. And it's actually really interesting because there's an underpass under the railroad all the way down at the end of the street that connects to Pearl Street. So
really?
So it's all going to be interconnected.
Are you going to be able to access that to feed back into the Pearl Street stuff?
Absolutely. That's the whole kind of master plan. I mean, so we're building out the Riverwalk on Upper Falls Road to connect to that railroad underpass, which will connect to, the city has their plans for the park down at the end of the Pearl Street there. Yeah. So the whole interconnection is a big thing. That 20,000 square foot historic building down at the end of Upper Falls Road, we're going to, we plan some retail uses down there. Like it'll be a great bar brewery type of,
totally, man.
Restaurant.
I haven't seen the view. I got to check it out at some point, but I'm sure like the water in the background and
it's awesome.
Whatever it is a great
amazing
view.
Real estate.
Yeah, seriously.
It's amazing real estate.
Is there stuff going on across the street from the Levee where that electric company is? Is someone developing something on that side of things?
Yeah, Tim Harrington has a development agreement with the city for something
on the other side. So that whole part of town between what you guys have going on, what Tim has going on, is really gonna change even more over the years to come.
Yeah, it's exciting, man. It's really exciting to be a part of.
Totally. It is wild. This is a weird thing I've said to Alan in the past. Alan Casamant drives me nuts, man. And I don't know that you guys have any influence on this, but like the railroad pass by the Levee, like the one that you actually drive under, and all the brush that is around there. Dude, at some point, if like you and Tim and the city came together and cleaned that up and made it to be like a nice entrance into the city, they would change things so much. But like what you guys are doing is already changing things so much. Has anyone ever said that to you, or is that something you think about when you?
I mean, trying to deal with what is it, Pan Am, the railroad company? Oh my God, good luck. It's that's one of those entities. Yeah, that's tough to get their ear.
But that's what Alan said too. Someday, man, someday.
Yeah.
How'd you guys come up with the Reveler name?
We worked with an advertising agency up here in Portland, and we went through this whole process. And if anybody knows Tom Watson, that he's the best guy. I mean, he's loves to have a good time. He started as a painter and a sheetrocker, right? And he kind of grew this whole thing organically, and he's like a tradesman, at heart, right? And so when I first started, even a lot of the people working here were just kind of like his friends that grew the company with him, that they're really just blue collar, like after they'd be done working, there'd be happy hours, almost every night, it seemed like back then.
Really?
Yeah. It was awesome. He's over 60 years old now, so he's slowed down a little bit, but a big part of the naming was kind of like, I think wanting to capture kind of some of the joy that we have doing what we're doing, so that was a big part of it. And actually Revel was the initial name that ended up being trademarked. So we had to add the Reveler, but Revel was the I think it's the Latin origin is, to reveal something, and so kind of this whole idea of revealing kind of unique opportunities for our partners, seeing what's there today and then revealing and unlocking potential of something that could be, so that was kind of the basic idea.
I love it, man. I love the branding, the name, the logo. It all looks good. Website looks awesome.
Thank you.
See some of the other projects going on in Portland too, which look freaking incredible as well.
We got a big master plan kind of going on in Portland, the West Bay side. we're wrapping up our 171 Class A unit apartment building, or Class A kind of lifestyle amenitized, as I said, kind of bringing some core market product to Portland. And that's wrapping up. We're releasing up right now. That'll be delivered in October. So that's a big one for us. We've been working hard on. So
where's that one located? You said West Bayside?
It's West Bayside. It's like right next to Bayside Bowl across the street.
Another area that's blowing up too, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So Tom, before I came on, Tom bought 82 Hanover Street, which is where Batson River Brewing is in Portland, Wilson County Barbecue, that old historic brick building. He was working on that when I came on. And so this project's kind of like an extension of that. It's, he bought those lots together. And so this will be the next phase of that.
For years, it seemed like something was always under construction over there. And it's probably going to be like that for a little bit more of time. But it's great to hear that the project's coming to completion, or at least that project's coming to completion.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exciting.
It's a great part of town. I guess coming out of hockey and going through this whole journey in your professional career, what have you learned? Like, what advice would you give to people that are just trying to be successful in their careers and business? Is there anything that comes to mind?
It's funny. We were talking about Chris Brockman before we got on here. I listened to your podcast with him a few weeks ago, and I just loved his story because it speaks to, he positioned himself and was ready for when an opportunity came his way, right? So and he stuck with it. He plugged away and kept going. It's such an interesting story. As it took him years to really get the shot that he wanted, right? And then once he got his shot out in LA, like, talk about capitalizing on it. Like, I mean, he's just like made the most of it. I'm sure there's a reason why they promoted him up to where he is, right? I mean,
he's skilled, and I'm sure he's got a quality to him that deserves it, but he put himself in that position. Right.
So there's an interesting book. I don't know if you know, it's called Outliers.
Absolutely.
Malcolm Gladwell.
Yep.
And a lot of what's in that book, I think it's true. It all speaks to kind of like serendipitous circumstance, right? All successful people have, and that leads to their success. So I think there's some of that where, like, in business or in hockey, like, the opportunity needs to be there, but once that opportunity is there, it's kind of like to be able to capitalize on it, and recognizing it. And it all comes down to, I think, like, there's a lot of will, right? Like, how much will did Brockman have to keep going, like keep thinking like he was going to get a shot eventually,
100%. There is parallels between his story and yours, though. Like you said, I've heard people refer to luck as when opportunity and hard work meet, and that's kind of what it is. You're working hard, then you have your opportunity, and you execute on it. And some people from the outside might perceive that as like, wow, John's so lucky, Chris is so lucky. But the reality is you were working hard and you just took advantage of that opportunity when you had it.
Yeah, I think that's true. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, both of those things do need to happen. I mean, you get the opportunity, but that opportunity never comes unless you're putting yourself in that position and working towards it,
Totally.
Yeah.
How much do you miss playing hockey? Is it something where you still miss it a bunch, or you ever get recreationally?
Yeah. No, I skate a couple times a week with
do you
a
really?
Group around. Yeah.
Teach them all a lesson or what?
No, I play with a lot of guys who, we try to get a group that's guys have played at some sort of level,
college and semi-pro or whatever.
But when I retired, I was really kind of like, I was so into my new career that I didn't really miss hockey at all at that point. There was 2-3 years where, like, I just didn't watch hockey, wasn't into it, like, and I think a big part of that was kind of like, I was fortunate enough to have a career that I really cared about and was working hard at and focused on. But as the years have gone on here, what I find is when playoffs come around and there's like meaningful games on TV, I feel like that's what I miss, playing in those important, meaningful games where it actually matters. Now you go skate with the boys, and it's kind of like, well, you're just skating to, wait until you can drink beer after the game.
It's a little bit different stakes. Yeah. Did you guys ever win any of your league championships, or? We
did. We won the German championship in 2014,
which must have been great.
It was amazing. It was awesome. And ice hockey over in Europe is kind of like, it's a lot like soccer. Every country has their own league, and then there's a Champions League where, like, the top teams of every league will go play. And so we were in the Champions League when I was in Ingolstadt. The last 6 years of my career, I played in Ingolstadt, Germany, which was right outside Munich.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like, I view that as like my hockey home, I guess. I spent the most time there, and Yeah, so we were in the Champions League consistently. We always had really good teams. We were in the championship twice, won one of them. And then I was actually in my first 3 years I was in Germany. I was in Wolfsburg, Germany, where Volkswagen is. And we went to the finals there once, lost in those finals. But those are, yeah, it was the German league was fabulous, man.
So
Like
they
it was
take
awesome.
it. I mean, there's a solid fan base for hockey in Germany and Europe. I guess you don't realize it as someone in the States just because the NHL is here and Canada and all that stuff. But like
Yeah.
being in Europe, there's a good fan base for your team. Good
There
following.
is. There's actually a lot of history, and especially in southern Germany, down near the Alps with hockey. But there's the rinks in like Berlin and Mannheim and Hamburg. I mean, they're like NHL style rinks. There's 12,000 fans. I mean, Germany's a really well capitalized country too. I mean, their sponsorship is really strong. So what they do in the German league particularly is they go out and they pay for foreign players more than any other league, right? So like there's half of every team is Germans, half of every team is North Americans,
Like
mostly.
North American,
Yeah.
Canadian.
And that's different than most European leagues. Most European leagues only have like a couple foreigners on their teams, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But Germany can do that because they can buy players because of their strong sponsorship and the support they have. So
it's awesome, dude. Love hearing about it. And congrats on all the success, man. It's been kind of cool to see you from a distance move out of hockey and then into this successful professional career. So, and honestly, I appreciate the work that you're doing and Tom's doing for my hometown. Like what you guys are doing in Biddeford is awesome. So I appreciate that as well.
Yeah, no, thanks, man. It means a lot. It's interesting to think about it that we're actually, we're making a great impact on the city of Biddeford. It's really, I never would have thought like, this is the position I'd be in, to be able to bring some, good positive result to the town. I mean, growing up there, I guess it was when we were in school. I mean, that was probably the depths of Biddeford, right? It was like,
which is funny because I didn't realize it at the time, but like, I agree.
It's like normal. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I'm like, this place is great. Like all my buddies, like beach, like all this cool stuff. And it's like, yeah, you're right. Meanwhile, all that other stuff was probably at its low point.
Right.
And it's come up from there, which is cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So listen, thank you for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it. Hope it went okay. Maybe we'll do it again as the projects continue rolling out in town.
Yeah. No, thanks, Randy. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Awesome, dude. We'll be in touch.
All right. Sounds good, man.